Hello there. Welcome to Just the Discs. We talk about Blu-rays here. My name's Brian, and a label I haven't talked about in a little bit is Warner Archive, and mostly because they just haven't been putting out as much stuff. But I must say, the four titles I'm going to talk about today all are high quality in terms of the films and high quality in terms of the transfers, which is something I've always tried to do when I talk about them on this channel, is to emphasize just how great a job they do with their transfers. They really take a lot of care over at Warner Brothers Motion Picture Imaging, and the transfers always look top notch. Like Criterion, whatever your absolute ceiling is, these transfers look that good, and they won't release a movie unless they can make it look this good, which is one of the reasons that sometimes it takes a little while for them to put out some of the classics, like, let's say, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the 1931 version directed by Ruben Mamoulian, starring Frederick March and Miriam Hopkins. For my money, the best version of this story there is, and of course based on Robert Louis Stevenson and based on Robert Louis Stevenson's novel. But yeah, this one just really stands out as one of the great horror films of the 1930s. It's a Paramount production. It is a movie that comes out, I want to say Dracula, Frankenstein, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde come out within 10 months of each other in 1931. And for whatever reason, this one gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. I want to say maybe it's because of availability. This has been a long time coming to Blu-ray, and I don't know. But in terms of studio horror from the 1930s, I feel like it's still a little underappreciated. It's certainly known because the story is known, but there's been so many versions of it too. I feel like that also is a reason that this particular film gets left behind a little bit in those discussions of classic horror. And so it's really exciting to have this on Blu-ray now. And as I said, transfer looks absolutely spectacular, beautiful. All these are beautiful black and white transfers, and this one is just outstanding. And an incredible performance from Frederick March. Miriam Hopkins, who I'm a huge fan of, I think is a little bit underrated. You know, did a lot of great comic work, but was just as good as a dramatic actress, and she's wonderful in this. I mean, you know this story. It's sort of a mad scientist story, a story of unleashed id, a story of the animalistic natures of human beings brought to the forefront. And like I said, it's just incredible. Not the least of which reasons why it's great is the makeup is really, really good in this film. And it's done in the transformation sequences too, in a really cool way. There's a couple different, obviously, editing tricks, you know, a la, not quite all of the Wolfman. There isn't really the progressive, you know, like the hair's growing in, the multiple fade ins on multiple shots, but there's some really cool tricks done here. There's stuff done with filters where the makeup that's on Frederick Marx's face, not the full makeup, but the beginnings of it, is revealed through using filters. So you'll see him in the same shot, and they'll slowly put a filter over the lens or change the lighting a bit, and the makeup starts to become more visible. But they do some great stuff with really quick, you know, pan downs to his hands, and then pan back up to the face. Sometimes there's a cut hidden there. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes there's occasions I was watching this again and looking at some of the transformations, and I was like, wow, how did they do that? And that's a neat feeling to have watching a movie from 1931, I gotta say. But again, great performances, great makeup, great monster story, and one of the great horror films of this period. So really excited about this one. And it got director Ruben Mamoulian's choice of young, handsome Frederick March, known then as a comic actor, to play the lead, raised the studio hackles, but Mamoulian argued, "I don't want Hyde to be a monster. Hyde is evil, he is primitive, the animal in us, whereas Jekyll is a cultured man representing the intellect. Hyde is the Neanderthal man, and March's makeup was designed as such." Obviously, Mamoulian's insistence paid off, as March won 1931-1932's Oscar for Best Actor. Indeed, the public fascination with Hyde equated equaled that of Boris Karloff's Frankenstein and Bela Lugosi's Dracula. So really great disc. It has a lot of times the Warner Archive discs are lacking in features. This is not the case on all these discs. Each one at least has a commentary. This one has 2 commentaries, one from screenwriter, film historian Dr. Steve Haberman, and filmmaker, film historian Konstantin Nasser. Great track from them. And then one from author, film historian Greg Mank. And then there's cartoon Hide and Hair. You get a little Warner Brothers Looney Tunes cartoon, and the 1950 Theater Guild air radio broadcast of this same story. So really highly recommended. Actually, probably going to go on my favorite discs of the year list now that I think about it. I'm going to set this aside for that. Really great stuff there. And then the much lesser known, but also very cool, Mark of the Vampire, with a really great cast. Lionel Barrymore, and then you have Bela Lugosi, Lionel Atwill, Gene Hersholt, and this is directed by the great Todd Browning, who did Freaks. Blood-sucking vampires are on the loose, terrorizing the frightened residents of a tiny village in this long-lost horror masterpiece directed by Master of the Macabre Todd Browning, who of course did Dracula as well. Mark of the Vampire is a classic shocker with a startling twist. Academy Award-winning screen legend Lionel Barrymore plays a local professor called in to investigate the strange murder of Sir Carroll, who died with puncture marks in his neck and his body drained of blood. Soon, Sir Carroll's daughter and would-be son-in-law are also victims of apparent vampire attacks. You'll shiver in fear as the professor's investigation takes him to the haunted castle where the deadly creatures of the night are said to reside. The mystery he uncovers in the castle's dark catacombs involves much more than the legendary monsters. Yes, very cool stuff and definitely underseen, especially for a film directed by such a high-profile talent as Todd Browning. Commentary by genre historian Kim Newman and Stephen Jones. Excellent track. And the short, A Thrill of Thelma, as well as a cartoon, The Calico Dragon. So nice little night at the movies and a really great track. I love Stephen Jones and Kim Newman, and I love that Warner Archive is using them. They are often relegated to import releases, although they have been used by Arrow and other companies as they're so great. But perfect for this disc, another one that I would consider one of the better releases of the year. And most recently, I have 2 more from Warner Archive of their most, up-to-date releases, the December stuff. Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, and this is from 1958. Classic, sort of camp classic kind of movie about a 50-foot woman. Would later be remade by Christopher Guest with Daryl Hannah in the 50-foot woman role in the 90s. But this is the original classic. And again, this transfer looks fantastic. I was stunned at just how good this looks. She's too much for any man. It's impossible not to have fun with this all-time kitsch classic, which, as fans know, is about a very big woman with a very bad attitude. The woman is wealthy Nancy Archer, Allison Hayes, fresh from the loony bin and ticked off. Her rat of a husband, William Hudson, has been at play while the cat's been away, putting the moves on Honey Parker. Yvette Vickers, who's on the commentary of this disc, Playboy's Miss July, 1959, scheming about the day when Nancy's fortune will be theirs. That day will never come, not after Nancy has an alien encounter that zaps her body into overdrive. Soon Nancy's size matches her rage. She'll prove big girls don't cry, they get even. Again, commentary by Yvette Vickers and film historian Tom Weaver. Very entertaining, very cool. It is a campy movie. You can see some of the effects are not particularly great, but there's a charm in that, and I think it's not any less charming in high definition. It looks very, very good on this Blu-ray, and if you're a fan of 50s sci-fi, type stuff, not the atomic age kind of stuff, this is a classic on that level, and a lot of fun to watch. Again, black and white, widescreen, 185, and looks wonderful in this new transfer from Warner Archive. I was very, very impressed and happy to see this one get a release with a commentary. Again, it's cool that all these have some features. And the last one for December is The Night of the Iguana, starring Richard Burton, Ava Gardner, Deborah Kerr, Sue Lyon. This directed by the great John Huston. And this is, again, sort of an underseen, underappreciated entry in John Huston's filmography. This from 1964. Man and woman, love and lust, ruin and redemption, one night they all meet. A man has got just so much in his emotional bank balance, but mine has run out. In a remote Mexican seacoast town, a fallen Episcopal priest struggles to pull his shattered life together, and three women, an earthly hotel owner, an ethereal artist, and a flirtatious, willful teenager can help save him or destroy him. With an outstanding cast headed by Richard Burton, Ava Gardner, and Deborah Kerr, direction by legendary filmmaker John Huston, and a steamy screenplay based on Tennessee Williams' acclaimed stage play, The Night of the Iguana pulses with conflicting passions and a surprising edge of knowing humor. Winner of one Academy Award and nominated for 3 more, the film explores the dark night of one man's soul and illuminates the difference between dreams and bittersweet surrender to reality. This disc includes a Night of the Iguana Hudson's Game on the Trail of the Iguana, a little featurette. So that is cool. No commentary, but nonetheless, again, I'm a big fan of John Huston's work, and I think, the big stuff always gets heralded, but something like this definitely falls by the wayside. And it's Tennessee Williams, so there's a lot of tension, a lot of heat, and a lot of poetry in the dialogue and interactions between this cast. And Richard Burton and Ava Gardner and Deborah Kerr, Sue Lyon, Skip Ward. It's a really nice cast and a really cool movie that I think, again, gets passed over when talking about Huston's work. Not as much as something like Under the Volcano or Wise Blood, but I still feel like this is in that conversation of films that he's done that I think are really remarkable and will definitely stick with you after you see them. I don't know, for some reason, it's not like going to be an influence on something like Glass Onion, but I just saw Glass Onion, and for some reason, this movie is making me think of that, although it's a totally different kind of movie, because this is not a whodunit. This is much more of a psychosexual drama sort of thing, and it's totally different, but something about the idea that, it's this seaside town, and I don't know, it feels almost landlocked in a certain way. Anyway, I don't know. I'm sure Rian Johnson's a fan of it regardless, and for some reason I feel like it would be a fun follow to Night of the Iguana. An even better follow would be Last of Sheila, which came out on Blu-ray from Warner Archive a year or so ago, and is obviously a huge influence on that film. Sorry to get sidetracked on Glass Onion, but anyway, I was thinking about what, when you're selling this older movie to a crowd that maybe hasn't seen it before, it's fun to try and think about new films that you can compare it to or new films that you could pair it with, and I do think that might work somehow. Anyway, Night of the Iguana, definitely worth your time, as are all of these Warner Archive releases, and I hope you get to check them out. And I will probably be talking about at least one of them, if not more, in my yearly favorites roundup video or videos that I'll do. Anyway, so thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.